Hi guys! Today we're going to do Practice It, Java Edition 5, Exercise 4.8, question smallest largest. So the question reads, write a method named smallestLargest that asks the user to enter numbers, then prints the smallest and largest of all the numbers typed in by the user. You may assume the user enters a valid number greater than 0 for the number of numbers to read. Here is an example dialog. Okay, so basically what we have to do is we have to ask the user, how many numbers do you want to enter? And once we know that number, we have to ask them with increasing numbers, number 1, 2, 3, 4, and get the 4 numbers that they want to input. And of those numbers they input, we have to find the smallest and the largest value. Okay. So first, let's just start off by creating the method. Okay. So void, because we won't be returning anything, and then smallest largest is the name of the method they asked for. Okay. So what we're going to do to, basically ask and take the user's desired number to input is scanner. Okay, so we just need to initialize scanner right now by doing scanner, and I'm going to name my scanner n and set that equal to new scanner, set it to system.in. Okay, so now that we have our scanner set up, which is used to read the user's responses, what we're going to do is ask them our question. So looking at, I'm just going to follow along the exact sample that they give us, and I'm going to ask the user, how many numbers do you want to enter? Then put a space, then parentheses, semicolon. Okay, so now that we asked that question, what shows up on the user's console is this. So now, obviously, they're going to input the number that they want. And now that they inputted it, we need to grab that number. So to do that, I'm just going to set it equal to a variable called times, and set that equal to n.next int. And what that's going to do is just read. So let's just say they put 4, right? So this line 6, basically reads that 4 and saves it into the variable times. Okay. So what we're going to do with all of these numbers is put them into an array and later just use a function to sort them from least to greatest. So to do that, we have to put all of these numbers into an array first. And before we put those into an array, we have to initialize our array. So let's do that right now. Int, I'm going to name my array numbers. And remember, the length of this array should be the amount of numbers the user wants to enter, which is times. Okay, so now that we have the array and the number of numbers the user wants to put in, we're just going to use a for loop to ask the user continuous questions for the numbers. So let's just create the for loop. A is equal to 0. And I'm starting at a is equal to 0 so that later, when we get the number, we can input the correlating value into the same index that we need the number to go into. So, like up here, we're going to ask the user for their number, and I'm just going to follow a sample, and ask them number. And then here, what I'm going to do is have a, but add 1, because we started a is equal to 0. And then have the semicolon and space. Okay, so now that we asked the question, the user answers, and to pick up that number, I'm just going to assign it to a variable called num, and have that equal to n.next int. So now that we have the number that they want to input, we're going to assign it to the correct index in the array. So we get the array name, and then the index is just going to be a, and set that equal to num, which is the number, like maybe 5, 11, -2, that the user put in. Okay, so since we do this 4 times, right, going off of the example, we now have all of these numbers that are in blue in our numbers array. So now what we have to do is order them from least to greatest to easily get the smallest and largest numbers. So I'm going to go back to way back up to line 1, and what I'm going to do is import java.util.arrays so that I can use a function that belongs to arrays. So now that we imported this arrays, what we're going to do is do arrays.sort, and inside the parentheses we're going to put the array we want to sort. So here what happens is it basically changes numbers to have the values inside go from least to greatest. Okay, so knowing that information, all we have to do now is basically print smallest largest, right? So what we're going to do is print ln and do smallest, is equal to plus. And then let's get the first index of numbers, because that will have the smallest value. And then this time print the largest one now. And remember, numbers is going to be times length, the length of times, right? But remember, because we start at index 0, we have to subtract 1 to not get an index arrays out of bound error. Oh, and the reason why I use print ln here is so that largest doesn't end up right next to -2, right? So that there's a line between a space, a new line when largest equals 11 is printed. Okay, then I think we're good to go. Let's run it. Okay, nice.